And the final episode, the final question this episode. And this one is this one's from Sadie Hart. This is kind of a special question. I wanted to address this one on the podcast. And I've actually got a response from Richard J. that I want to read for you, Sadie, on this one. Sadie sends in, Dear Brian, my name is Sadie. I am 16 years old and have autism. Kids at my school made fun of me when I was younger because I was different. I would come home from school and cry into my pillow because I had no friends. My mother showed me Star Wars for the first time when I was 11, and it quickly became my escape from reality. People made even more fun of me when they found out I liked Star Wars. I lost myself in the books and movies, and it helped me through those dark times in my life. I was wondering if there was any particular of Star Wars that has helped you through the dark times and why it means so much to you like it does me. I love your YouTube videos. Keep up the great work and congratulations on your baby. Thanks for the question, Sadie. And real quick before I address this, this is something that I really did want to talk about on this episode because hits really close to home even for me. I mean, it's and I'll talk about it here in a minute, but I grew up being bullied because I was a nerd, because I grew up in the 90s when being a nerd wasn't that cool, and now everybody, oh, you like Star Wars? So do I. Like Star. It's just openly, I was a closet nerd up until everybody found out, and then the cat was out of the bag. I was bullied a lot, so I know where you're coming from on this. Real quick before I get into this though. Richard J., you guys have heard me say that name on this podcast before. He helps me run the Facebook page for the Star Wars Canon Podcast. He asked me if I would read this to you, Sadie. He had a response to your question, and this is what he wanted me to read to you. Richard J. says, my favorite novel is Tattooing Ghost. It's an old EU novel set around 3 to 4 years after Return of the Jedi. It starts off with Leia going to an auction at Mos Espa to hopefully win an old Alderanian picture. It's made of moss, so it's a living picture. However, there is also a data chip in there of every rebel agent still undercover in the Empire. During her trip, she is drawn to an image of a young boy standing next to his pod racer. She inquires about the boy and finds out it's Anakin. All the people she comes into contact with regale her with stories about how kind and generous Anakin was. Leia visits the grave of her grandmother and discovers Shmi's journal and learns just how kind her father was. In typical Star Wars fashion, there are equally horrific Vader stories to quote-unquote balance the novel. It is what makes Leia decide to have children. It's a story about looking at the inner good in someone. Keep looking for the inner good in people, Sadie. We love you, Jay. He wanted me to read that to you after I sent him your mailbag question. This is something that we have got to talk about for a minute, guys, because this is unacceptable. This is completely unacceptable. We live in a time now where we've got all this Star Wars material coming out, right? And ooh, bump my mic. And you have got people, not a lot of people. There's a handful of people, but it's still obviously a problem if we're talking about it. You've got people who hate a movie, a fictional piece of work. They hate it so much that they are bashing every bit of hatred and vitriol they can on the director. It's just even to other people who say they like it. If you like something they don't like, you are a piece of shit. That is their opinion. That's the world we live in now. We live in a world where in that same movie, there's a character that somebody didn't like, and they bashed the actress so much that she shut down her Instagram account. That's the world we live in. That's how toxic people are nowadays. And granted, it's not everybody. I know that. But the extreme people like that are the loudest and the ones that come to the front the most. And it has made me embarrassed to be a Star Wars fan at times. That's unacceptable. Unacceptable. Because at the same time, the same fan base can rally around a guy that they've never met, who will not live to see the next Star Wars movie, and campaign to have him get to see it before he dies. That's the same fan base. The same fan base that made that happen is the fan base that is just ripping into people for liking something they hate. Oh, you ruined my childhood. Screw you, Ruin Johnson. Really? Oh, I don't like that character. She's a Mary Sue. Why? Why? You know, why can't everybody just like what the hell they like? Like I said earlier, going to your question, Sadie. I grew up in the 90s, mid-90s, and I went to school every day sick to my stomach in elementary school. I was sick so many times throughout my childhood, physically nauseous, because I did not want to go to school because of how horrible the kids were. Nobody knew I was a nerd until they caught me drawing lightsabers on a piece of lined notebook paper one day, and that was the end of it. People saying, oh, he's drawing his dildos and all. I mean, just kids were horrible in the 90s. They're still horrible. Not as bad as they used to be. You know, there's, I mean, like with what you're dealing with, I'm sure that's not the norm. That's not normal. Those kids need their asses beat. And I probably pissed some people off saying that. But it's the truth. There's nothing wrong with you. There's not a damn thing wrong with you. You are just like the rest of us. We all love Star Wars, and that's what matters. And I'm sorry, I grew up being made fun of all the time. Relentlessly. Hardly had any friends. I came home, never wanted to go back to school. Ever. And it was the same way with the teachers. Even the teachers were horrible to me. Because the students didn't like me. Teachers didn't like me. And that was just the school I went to. And it was, my dad would go up to the school on a weekly basis and damn near beat my principal's ass because of how big of a piece of shit he was. I'm serious. And it's unacceptable, you know? Those are the dark times Star Wars got me through too. My mother showed me Star Wars for the first time when I was 6. I think 6. And it was the classic trilogy on the Sci-Fi Channel. And up until that moment, I was miserable all the time. I couldn't make friends, you know? And then after they found out I liked Star Wars, it was even worse. But Star Wars for me also was kind of that escape from reality. You know, that was when I started buying all the toys and the action figures and reading some of the books here and there and just watching the movies over and over again. I would get little toy flashlights and put a stick inside of it, pretend it was a lightsaber. I wanted nothing more than to be a Jedi Knight when I was a child. That's what I wanted to be. Everybody wants to be Batman or Superman nowadays. I wanted to be a Jedi. That's what I wanted. You know, shit, I still do. Who wouldn't? But even in my adult life, there are aspects of Star Wars that have really helped me through some real trying times. You know, more recently, this whole ordeal with my mother. For those of you that don't know, I'm just going to sum it up in a nutshell. My mother decided she wanted to steal her sister's husband away from her, and it's just this whole affair thing happened, and she disowned Kirsty, she disowned me, and you know, and we've cut her out of our lives completely. My mother and my sister, who sided with her, but we've completely cut them out of our lives because of how big of pieces of shit they are, and I never thought I'd say that about my mother, but I've always wanted to just cut all negativity out of my life. And I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's my best friend all of a sudden just becomes an asshole, starts being negative all the time, running me down. Bye. And I don't think my friends are going to do that, but I got no problem with it. You know, there are aspects of Star Wars that helped me through when my dad died very suddenly. It was Yoda's teachings, the whole train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. You know, don't mourn for those who transform into the Force. You know, stuff like that. That's helped me through a lot. And every trilogy, Yoda's got some kind of little bit of wisdom that helps me through my life. The prequels was the whole train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. That's deep, you know? The classics, do or do not, there is no try. That's classic. I mean, everybody knows that phrase. And even in episode 8, whether you loved it or hate it, Yoda, failure is the greatest teacher. That's deep, man. I'm about to tear up thinking about it. That's deep. Those are words of wisdom that it's weird to hear them from a little frog alien, green frog alien in a Star Wars movie. But it doesn't, it still hits home. Doesn't matter who says it, it still hits home. And there's obviously more things to Star Wars you can apply to your life to help you through stuff like that. But those are some of the moments that kind of helped me through. You know, even when me and Kirsty, we kind of went through a rough patch in our relationship for a while back toward the beginning. And there was a lot there that helped me. You know? And I say all that to say this. It doesn't matter what situation you're going through. I guarantee you, at some point in Star Wars, I can find something that will directly relate to that situation and help you see a better way to get through it. Whether it's being bullied in high school or losing a parent, losing somebody else in your family, doesn't matter. There's something in there that can help you through it. You know, so the only advice I can give you at this point is just ignore them. That's when I was being picked on, my father gave me the best piece of advice I ever got. And it worked. You ignore them. You don't give them a time of day. You just, when they sit in there, yap, 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 tune them out. Put a deflector shield up. Block it all out. Because what they think does not matter. You can't. Freddie Prinze Jr. came out on Twitter the other day and said this after a lot of people started bashing about his opinion and stuff. You can't break something you don't own. They can't break your spirit because they don't own you. They don't own it. You determine your reality. Like what Qui-Gon says, your focus determines your reality. That is what matters. Don't worry about the people in your school, because you've got a fan base here that is going to rally behind you and love you for who you are. I'm serious. And they're going to talk Star Wars with you because that's who we are. And granted, there are some people that are going to disagree with your opinion on some stuff you like. That's going to happen. But just know there's not a damn thing wrong with you. There's not a damn thing wrong with me. There's not a damn thing wrong with any of us. We love what we love, and that's what matters. So I wish I could help you more than that. I really do. And I hope that has helped. I hope you take that to heart. Okay, because you're not the only one. You're not alone, all right? So thank you for sending in the question. I do appreciate it. And, you know, I hope this was kind of an eye-opener. It actually opened my eyes a lot more. And I agree with you. And it still opened my eyes more to realize that there are still people out there that are like this. And you either stand up to them and give them what they want or just ignore them. Because they're picking on you to get a rise out of you. That's all it is. You don't give them a rise, they get bored and they leave you alone. So take that for what you will, Sadie. Thank you for being a follower. I'm so glad to have you as a listener. Thank you so much for the question. And stay strong, okay? We're right there with you. I promise you that.